Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? Hi everyone, I see some familiar faces and some new ones, so we'll just go around and do some quick introductions. My name is Sonya. I'm a young breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed at age 29 with an early stage breast cancer, and since then I've been on this journey to survivorship, which has involved turning an experience I had during treatment into something a little bit bigger than myself. During treatment, I went through hair loss, and I realized that women who are facing cancer don't really have the best options out there. We don't really have fashionable solutions to our hair loss. And so during treatment, I actually started to experiment with fabrics. And during that time, I came up with styles that made a huge difference in my quality of life. And it kind of taught me that hair loss is a much bigger process than just your hair falling out. It's kind of letting go of your hair, how do you come to terms with that, and then how you find your way back to who you really are, this new version of yourself, if you will. So that's what StyleEsteem has been about, and that's what this series is about. It's about kind of giving us the space to discuss all parts of the hair loss process and talking about how how you can kind of thrive best before treatment, during treatment, and after treatment when it comes to hair loss. So this is the third and final installment of this series for National Hair Loss Awareness Month. And last week we had Cancer Fashionista with us. This week we have My Cancer Chic, Anna Crollman, who we'll introduce in a minute. And so we'll be talking about everything from just finding your confidence in your new hair, because even though it is your hair, it's your new hair, right? So it's hair that you're having this hair for the first time. So how do you find your new self-love, new confidence, and then also just how do you keep healthy? How do you keep yourself healthy, your new hair healthy? What sort of things should you be mindful of as you go forward as a survivor into this new journey? And so before I go ahead and let Dr. Jen and Anna introduce themselves, I wanted to make a quick note that because there's been a few incidents that I've heard of and experienced with Zoom bombing recently on these calls involving, all things around breast cancer, which I think should be a sacred space for us to talk openly and freely. I've kept everyone on mute because I wanted to wait to see how many people show up and how many of you guys are real attendees, not some Zoom bombers. So I see most of you are on camera, and I can keep everyone off of mute because I want this to be conversational. I want anyone to feel free to jump in and just like throw in a yes, I agree, or no, I have a question, or just kind of pretend like we're in a living room sitting together and chatting. And so you won't be able to unmute yourselves at the moment, but I can take everyone off of mute so this can be conversational. And anyone that does join will be muted unless I unmute them. That way there's no potential for disrupting or doing anything in this space that's unwelcome. So if that's okay with everyone, if you want to stay on mute, you can go back on mute, and then if you have a question, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you. But just for the sake of keeping this open and informal and friendly, let's just do that. So Dr. Jen, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then Anna.
Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Jen. I'm a breast cancer surgeon. I practice out of Flemington, New Jersey at Hunterdon Medical Center. I'm also the founder of an organization called Evolve Inc. And our mission is to help women transition from treatment into healing and to give them the appropriate and necessary tools to make that transition smoothly by introducing them to holistic modalities, nutrition, yoga, meditation, all kinds of things, and also coming together and collaborating with other amazing thrivers and survivors to discuss topics like this so that women are prepared for what's coming down the pike. So thank you for having me, Sonya. I'm very happy to be here. It's nice meeting you all. I know some of you. It's good to see you. Also, I'm on the beach. I cheated.
Good for you.
Go ahead, Anna.
I'll go ahead. I just left the beach, so I'm feeling a little sad. We got home today from the beach. My name's Anna Crollman, and I have a blog called My Cancer Chic. I'm so excited to be here tonight. I was diagnosed when I was 27 with stage 2B, triple positive breast cancer, and similar to Sonya, I saw a lack in resources and space and inspiration for women that really wanted to feel beautiful and just feel confident during treatment, especially, I was 27 at the time, so I was still working. I was curious about fertility, so I felt like a lot of the resources really weren't geared towards my age group. And so that's what inspired me to start sharing my journey. And I specifically really focused on photos and images and visuals, because when I was searching, I struggled to find images of things that I could relate to. The hair piece, what was it going to look like? How could I still dress up? How could I do my brows? How could I, style this hair that I had as it was coming back? And so I have been really passionate about making sure those resources are out there. And so I'm glad to be here to talk with you guys tonight, and glad to share any wisdom that I have. I just celebrated my 5-year cancerversary a couple weeks ago. So that was really exciting and hard to believe that 5 years has already passed. So really excited to chat with you guys tonight. And like Sonya said, just have a conversation, because I think what really brought me hope when I was going through things was to talk to other people that had walked that path before. So yeah, excited to dive in.
Yeah, and before we do that, I also wanted to note to you guys that everything we talk about, we both have blog posts that we put out on these topics, and so don't worry about too much about taking notes, and just pay attention and be in the moment with us. And after the event is done over the weekend, probably I'll send out a little roundup of all of our contact information, all the blog posts that you might want to go back and take a look at, that kind of capture what we were talking about. So welcome everyone. And I think Anna, what you touched on just now about like being able to find things that kind of resonate with you, things that look the way you feel you want to look, things that you connect with. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I know that when my hair came back, and for a lot of women, your new hair means something different to you, right? Because you've gone through this journey with your body and your hair, and now you're sort of assigning new meaning to the things that you had before because they're new to you. And so, like in my case, I know that everything was different, like from the clothes in my closet to the rubber bands that I just didn't want to reuse. So can you talk a little bit about how that was for you, and kind of how you coped with the newness of that hair regrowth?
Yeah, I think like you said, everything is new. I mean, I actually gained a lot of weight during chemo as well. So I felt like when I looked in the mirror, I didn't even look like myself because I was completely bald. I had gained 10 pounds. None of my clothes fit. And so I think you're right. As that hair was coming in, it felt like a totally different person. So one of the things that kind of helped me, and I almost had this shift a little bit in the middle of chemo, was I had initially bought wigs that looked like my hair before, thinking that that was going to feel good to wear a wig that looked like me. And really early on into chemo, I realized that that was actually really traumatic for me. And so I found that actually just going with a hairstyle that was completely different than something I would have worn before helped with my confidence, because I could project a new person. And so instead, I kind of looked at it as okay, today I'm gonna take on this type of style, and I would wear a certain wig. Or, as my hair was coming in, well, today I'm feeling very feminine, so I'm gonna throw on like some barrettes or a hairband or, big earrings. And tomorrow maybe I want to go edgy. I mean, one day I remember I like tried to rock this little mohawk, which
Yeah.
normally for me was not my style, but for me it was helpful to say, okay, this is a new me. And the me and the hair that was before is no longer. And some of you, if you look at my blog, you'll see like I had very long, dark hair prior to chemo. And I have never gone back to that because it was like, okay, that was a chapter and it's closed and it's okay. And it was easier for me to just kind of go with the new. It helped me feel more confident.
Yeah, I love that. It's so much about giving yourself that permission to find that new sort of sweet spot in your style. And yeah, we're definitely going to share those pictures because I know you have like a montage of like the different hairstyles, and they're so like the spectrum is so wide. So I think that we really need to share that. But is anyone in the group going through that or has any questions or thoughts about that? Feel free to share. Yeah, go for it, Trish. Yeah.
It's interesting, Anna, to hear you say that you were a different person, so you changed your hairstyle. I'm so looking forward to going back to what I was before the diagnosis, getting back to my personality, which, that's changed a little bit with just with everything. And somebody asked me the other day, they're like, well, maybe your hair will come back in black and girly. I'm like, I just want my same color and my same cut. And so I don't know if I'm going to get to the point where you got. I know that when my hair started falling out, I was surprised that I was ready just to shave it off. So that was interesting to me also, because I'm like, you know what, let's just take it off. So what made you, or how did you get to the point where you were okay with a different color, different style?
Yeah, I think, Trish, it's also personal. Like I have talked to so many women that do want to go back to their hair before. And so I think, you're going to go through your own form of acceptance. But for me, I just had such a visceral emotional reaction to putting on the wig that was supposed to look like my hair, that became like a very negative experience for me to try and pretend that was my hair. And so I don't know, like that experience with the wig during chemo just kind of turned me off. I also like had always wanted to experiment with blonde hair. And
Sorry, that's my dog barking. Sorry.
Okay.
She's just talking.
So I think it was almost a series of, okay, I'm trying to come to grips with what I've gone through, this new person, feel confident, and then have it be on my terms, So if you decide that you want to go back to the hair that you had, good for you. Like it needs to be on your terms, right? And that's the thing for me that was like this evolution after my hair came back. It's like, okay, it's a choice now. And I can either choose to do this or choose to do that, but either way, I'm getting to choose now. So don't beat yourself up. I think that's totally normal too.
So it's interesting. I'm so sorry because I want to say something. I'm trying to get her to quiet.
It's okay. I think your dog has very strong opinions on wigs.
It's very vocal tonight. So
just like us.
I wore a wig yesterday. I went to visit my dad. He's 94 in assisted living. And I have not told him about anything because I don't want him to worry. And I did put a wig on that I chose that looks very much like my hairstyle, the way it used to be. And I was so happy to find it. I couldn't wait to get that wig. Thank you, Katie. I couldn't wait to get that wig off after I finished visiting with him for an hour. Because it wasn't me. It wasn't my hair. And when I took it out, my husband's like, oh, let me see that wig. I'm like, I'll show it to you later. Because it's fake. It's, I just didn't. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I may get to because I'm sure there's going to be a million different hairstyles that are going to happen over the next 6 months to a year.
I just want to really
go
quick.
for
I'm
it.
sorry. I'm Laura, and I am a hairstylist. I'm just listening to you, and I have had so many different experiences with women that have had both sides, have experienced both sides, where, like you said, Anna, that some women felt like they wanted to have total control and try different things, and trying different looks, completely different looks than what they were before. But then with like Trish, I've also heard from women that they wanted to be their old self because that was comforting to them. And getting through the process is, like Anna said, I mean, it's your own journey. And I think just embracing yourself and who you are is really important as you go through the different stages. Sorry, I just wanted to interject really quick.
That was helpful.
That's a wonderful point. And you know, you're so right, because like Trish said, it's like you're going to have to see yourself in a number of different lights, right? Because you will go through that regrowth process. And even if you had, like, let's say long hair before, and you're, just waiting to get back to that, you will see yourself in that process in a number of different lights. So I think it's a little bit about, not just embracing those stages, because they are a passage in time. It will go from one to the next to the next. I personally cannot believe how much my hair has grown in quarantine alone. Like, I could do a ponytail now, and it's just life-changing. I love it so much. So, but all the other things that came before that, they were going to happen either way. And I think it's important to sort of celebrate that and see that as, a really wonderful milestone, even if it's not necessarily the most, if you don't feel like it's the most flattering thing for you, or it's just not your favorite look. It's still important to just kind of recognize how far you've come and how important that is. So definitely want everyone to kind of keep that in mind.
And I also wanted to say really that you mentioned, Trish, that at one point when your hair started coming out, I believe you said that you just wanted to shave it all off, because that is something I've also seen. It's definitely happened to a lot of my customers, that they've had that type of experience. And I think that is surprising to a lot of women. Like, some women don't want that to happen, and they are grieving the loss of their hair, but then they go through a period, and again, everyone's different, but they go through a period where they feel like, okay, I'm just done with this, and I'm tired of seeing it coming out slowly. And then that's another piece, at least this is what I have been told, that's another piece that they feel like, I have control over this and I'm choosing this.
Yeah,
so
it's totally a control thing. And I felt sick. I mean, I felt like I didn't feel sick physically,
No.
but the hair coming out made me feel like a cancer patient. And
Yeah.
I wasn't accepting that. So that plus a control thing, I wanted to take control of it.
Which is great. And it's actually a positive, I think. I just want to say that I think wanting to feel in control as you're going through the process is so important, that you allow yourself to feel that way, to have some control, whatever that is for you in that moment.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just, there's so many things to kind of keep in mind in terms of balancing your health and your hair regrowth as you're going through sort of coming off of chemo, and you're looking forward to having a bit more ownership over your look and just your style on a day-to-day basis because of your hair. There's certain things to keep in mind. So one concern that I often see is I think many of us are breast cancer patients here, but this kind of goes across any kind of strain of cancer. I think there's a lot of patients who go through chemo and then they're on some kind of a long-term therapy, whether, for some of us it's tamoxifen, some of us it's Herceptin, some other combination of drugs. I know I have my own regimen, as many of you do. And so there is sort of this excitement about hair regrowth, but then, you kind of, I think for many people, you expect it to happen at a certain pace, and then you're realizing, sometimes there's like a growth spurt and sometimes it slows down and the eyelashes are going, but the hair is coming, and what's happening right now. So I think it's important to remember that, while chemo is something that obviously takes the hair away, there are other therapies that come after that have their own effect. And just because something is not causing, hair loss, just like the clumps of hair coming out, just because that's not happening doesn't mean that there aren't other side effects from the other drugs. And so just exercising patience is really important. And the farther away you get from the chemo, from the IV drugs, I think that's when you start seeing that there's, a lot more sort of rejuvenation in your body. I know that personally, when I did chemo, my hair fell out. Then I did Herceptin. And during Herceptin, my hair was growing back. But then once I got farther away from that, I'm 1 year out from active treatment. And now I'm really seeing, just the result of the hard work. And so, I think now maybe a good time to talk about the other things you can do, because a lot of us are on long-term therapies. What can we do to counteract that and still foster healthy hair and healthy hair habits? So I know biotin is a very common thing that patients lean on. So, like, Anna, when did you start taking biotin? I think for you it was took it during treatment.
Very end of chemo. So I was like, it was interesting. My hair, similar to you, Trish, my hair started to fall. Actually, no, I decided to shave it before it started to fall out. Sorry, it's all becoming a little fuzzy, but it was kind of, Laura, to what you were speaking about with the control piece. I really wanted a salon where I could go and have a little party with my girlfriends and have some ownership of like the loss experience. And so I did it, like I buzzed it. So I went to work for a week and a half and tried to get used to like the buzz cut. And then in my mind, I was like, well, then maybe when it comes back, I will have like experienced it a little bit. And then as it was falling out, it was very painful. So at that point, I started shaving it like with my husband's razor. So interestingly enough, throughout chemo, mine started to like come in patches a little bit, and I kept shaving it, just because, Trish, as to what you were saying, it made me feel sickly, to look like that very patchy, thin hair. So I had just said, I'm going to continue shaving it until my last chemo. And then I had asked my oncologist, I was like, can I start biotin literally the day I get home from that chemo? And she was like, yep, go for it. Which now I've heard some women start during treatment too. So I think, like, from what I've heard, and I'll, Dr. Jen, I'll defer to you, but like, just talk to your doctor about what's best. But for me, I did the biotin, like literally as soon as I got home, and I'm sure everybody like handles it differently, but I was taking straight biotin at first, and then it broke me out really bad. So if anybody else has that experience, I was taking a very high dose. And so I scaled back and ended up taking like a gummy hair vitamin that I have been on now for 5 years. And it has just a lesser amount of biotin. So I think it's too, just figuring out what works for your body, talking to your care team. But biotin was huge for me. I mean, I took photos every single month of my hair growth, and it was like, it sprouted like weeds. So that was really exciting to document.
So quick question on our first call, somebody had said that she didn't recommend the biotin because it was causing hair growing in other places that she didn't want it to grow. So does that happen?
In my experience, yes. There was hair all over my face, and the most annoying was the pubic hair. I was very happy when that one was gone, but yes, so that was also part of me switching to a lesser dose. Again, you kind of just have to see what works for your body, but yes, when it is forcing your hair to grow, it means all of your hair. I mean, my arm hair was growing, my hand hair was growing, my face hair, but I mean, my hair was like 1.5 inches in a month. So, I mean, you know, you can, I think, determine what's best for your body.
I'm glad I asked that question.
It's true. It does happen. Yeah, that is a thing. And it's true also that a lot of women are allergic to it. I think that, Anna, you just have to see what your body, how your body reacts to it.
And Dr. Jen, and then Blakely as well.
What's that?
Dr. Jen, do you want to chime in about biotin? Just your thoughts.
So I have a lot of patients. I take biotin. It's on my desk. And a lot of patients of mine take it during chemo. I would ask your specific oncologist in case they have their own beliefs and what you can and can't take during treatment. But as far as my oncologist, they don't have an issue with taking biotin. Laura, I've never heard of anyone having an allergic reaction to it, so that's interesting and something to definitely keep in mind.
Yeah.
And as far as hair growth elsewhere, I haven't really noticed that. But I've always been hairy. I was a hairy kid, so I don't know. I guess it's, you know, nothing's for free, so I guess you just take the good with the bad.
That's a good point. And then part of it might be just that you might not remember how much hair you had before, and everything just seems like a lot all at once. So I think that was my experience. I think Blakely, you had your hand up. Do you have a question?
Well, that was my experience too. So I stopped my first regimen of chemo on April 7th, and then my hair started growing back. So I guess I'm 4 months out. I've heard mixed things from my doctors about different vitamins. I haven't asked about biotin specifically. I did ask my oncologist if I could start taking collagen, like Vital Proteins collagen supplement, because I feel like that should help with hair. So that was my kind of question that I've heard mixed things about whether or not vitamins are good. I think my surgical oncologist mentioned that she had just seen some study that said that certain vitamins might increase risk of recurrence. There's so many things that contradict, which is really frustrating. Mm-hmm. And then just I had one silly story to share and then a question. And that was, I shaved my head after my hair started falling out. And so I had a buzz cut, but then it still kept coming out. So I would take a lint roller and roll it on my head, and it would just pick up so many little tiny pieces of hair, and I would just lint roll my head on and on and on. And it was, you know, heart-wrenching and terrible, but it was also a little bit amusing. So I was
that needs to be like a GIF, like a GIF.
Yeah.
Like I want to post that to the StyleEsteem page. That's so.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
Yeah, I've shared, I have a whole like library of things that at some point I want to share, but I haven't been able to do it in real time.
Yeah.
And then my last kind of comment, because the thing about hair growing back is I'm like, I didn't even notice that I had lost the hair here and here. Also, I feel like I have hair growing on my face, like tiny, tiny, fine hair that I didn't really have before. And so I don't know if that happened to anybody else, or I was like, was I really this hairy? But because I said no, because my, you know, it really wasn't like this. So now I'm a little bit like, what can I do?
Yeah, so I think there's two things there, right? So there's the vitamins, and then there's like the excess hair. So let's just quickly touch on the vitamins first. So I'm kind of a believer, and I know like Anna takes biotin, I take biotin. I know a lot of us do, but I'm personally a believer in not leaning only on supplements. I think the things that you do should complement each other. So you know, a well-rounded diet, moisturizing your hair and your scalp with, you know, the right oils, and those sort of things. And, you know, there's a lot of interesting things about those vitamins. So like, even though you can't necessarily take supplements, and I know collagen, I can't get a straight answer from my oncologist about that, about collagen
collagen.
specifically, and I want to take it, but I have not done it because I can't get a straight answer from him.
And mine said fine.
Yeah. See, it's a strange thing, but like, I think it's important to remember that there are a lot of there's a lot of good foods that have all these same vitamins. And so while you might not be able to necessarily bulk up on supplements, you can definitely, have the right foods in your diet that can foster hair growth. And we just put out a blog post about like 5 easy snacks that are hair healthy. And at the end, there's like a list of all these vitamins that are in those snacks. And just keeping in mind things like, if you're taking something like collagen, it's also really important to take something like vitamin C, because vitamin C helps store collagen. And so, not just necessarily focusing on the names that you recognize, like the biotin and the collagen, but then understanding how they kind of interact with other vitamins in your food and other vitamins in the supplements you're taking. So I suggest, and I'll send this out, towards the end, but, I suggest looking at that list and sort of understanding how different combinations of vitamins can be helpful in your food, as well as, if you decide with your doctor that it's fine to take other things in addition. And so the other question you were asking, sorry, chemo brain.
It was just about hair regrowing on my face, and
Hair
I don't know
regrowing.
if Jen had
Yeah.
raised her hand.
So Anna,
about
I know
something. She did.
Oh yeah.
Unmute her as well. I know Anna, you're thinking of doing laser hair removal, right? Was that a factor in that decision?
Real fast before I go into that.
What's that?
Did you want to say something about?
So the reason that the topic of vitamins and supplements is so confusing and frustrating, as you said, is because there's not a lot of hard data on it. So you can find studies that say that collagen reduces the rate of metastasis of breast cancer. You can find studies that say it didn't do anything. You can find studies that say that it wasn't beneficial. So it's difficult to kind of pin it down, really, because in order to really get causation with something, you need randomized control tests. You need a group that gets it and a group that doesn't. And then that's the way the data needs to be done. Otherwise, it's kind of just these retrospective, looking backwards, just looking at who took what. So the answer is we don't really know. But if something were to cause something at a really high rate, we would know. So I try to tell my patients not to lose sleep about it, because if you read every single little thing, you can make yourself nuts, So everything in moderation is kind of what I think when it comes to those things.
I have a question, Jen. So I believe that when you're going through chemo, it is changing, obviously, your hormones. And for example, the type of cancer I had was progesterone and estrogen positive. And so I can't take any actual hormone replacement therapy. I'm going through menopause. And I just am curious, like if that's something that affects, like the question that Blakely had, isn't it affecting your hormones? That because normally you wouldn't have as much like facial hair or what have you, like it changes, I think, when you are forced into menopause. And I know that a lot of women that go through breast cancer, and are breast cancer survivors, that I believe they experience something similar, because they can't have the estrogen and progesterone in their bodies. Is that correct?
Replacements, you mean, when you hit menopause?
Yes, like or something to help.
Does the hormone changes influence hair growth?
Yeah, the hair imbalance.
The hormone change? Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That definitely affects hair growth and hair loss. So as our estrogen drops as we age, or if we're put into menopause artificially through medications, yeah, it causes hair thinning and hair loss for sure.
But then it can also, I mean, I don't know, does it cause you to have hair growth in places that you normally wouldn't have with the hormonal changes? I guess that was kind of my question.
So I think everybody responds to the hormonal changes differently.
Okay.
So there's not one answer. Some people do grow hair at different places when their hormones fluctuate and change. Some people lose hair. They lose all of their pubic hair. So everybody kind of reacts to the hormonal fluctuations differently. But in a general term, yes, they do affect your hair growth and hair pattern.
I hope that helped, Blakely, because I know that I was curious about. And you mentioned that you found that there was more, you thought there was more hair, even though fine hairs. I just thought maybe that a possibility that had something to do with it.
Okay, one more quick question. I know I've asked a lot of questions already tonight.
Go for
So
it.
if you don't take the biotin, is it going to take twice as long for my hair to grow back in?
No.
I've taken no supplements whatsoever. And this is like, I don't know, three and a little bit of months.
Okay. I can't wait for that. I can't wait for what you have.
I looked like you 4 months ago.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I think, Trish, everyone is so different. I mean, even if you are both on, you take two people and they're both on biotin, like you also have to think about how quickly your hair grew before chemo. I mean, there was one girl, I have a local support group, and I mean, she's half Hispanic. I mean, her hair was literally like down to here in 3 months. And I mean, so it was just, and she didn't take anything. So it's just, I think so much of it is person to person, but if you're anxious and you want to try something, it seems like most people will recommend it as something to try, but I don't think you need to feel any pressure.
Okay.
So to Blakely, I think, and Sonya, you were asking like about hair removal. So one of the best little inventions that I found after chemo, because I was like you, Blakely, I like did not ever see that I had facial hair before, and then suddenly it was there. It's like this little, it's like a facial razor, but it's not a razor. It's like almost similar to like an electric razor for men. So it's really soft and it doesn't actually like have blades on it, and it just removes like all the fine little hairs. And the one question I always get asked is, does it come back darker or thicker? And from everyone that I've spoken to that uses it, it does not. And I know tons of women that use them after. So that's what's worked for me. Obviously, do your own research and read reviews, but I've loved that. I use it just because I feel like with all the hair on my face, like now it like my makeup and my skincare and things don't absorb and lay as flat. So I do that probably like every like couple weeks or so, and then I do something called dermaplaning, which is like a type of facial. So for me, that's just like really helped. I have very oily acne skin as well. So I know like with the hormones and everything, my skin changed as well. So it's just trying to deal with the skin and then the hair. And then Sonya did mention I'm going to be starting some laser hair removal this fall for my underarm bikini, just because I'm tired of shaving. And it's just, it's kind of weird. It's like going through chemo, while I hated to lose my head hair, it was nice to like not have to shave my legs and be able to, get in a bathing suit and stuff. And so I think I got a little spoiled in that sense. So there's definitely options out there if it gets to the point where you're frustrated with it, but also know that it's totally normal for that to happen. So you're not like, it's not anything strange for that to happen to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think let's maybe talk a little bit about like as that hair is coming back, right? What are you paying attention to more in terms of caring for it and keeping it healthy? Like what kind of products are you leaning on? Because the curls for a lot of people are like a new thing that they're dealing with. And I personally had curly hair my entire life. So I kind of consider myself a little bit of an expert there. But for me, it's always been, the goal was to keep the curls intact and to keep them hydrated. And so that kind of reduces the frizz situation, and it just helps you look a little bit more polished and clean. And I think when your hair is so short, it's even more important to kind of, I call it keeping it contained. I find that that's kind of the goal, right? Especially now with kind of being at the end of summer and some humid days and some not, and some crazy windy days and hurricanes and things like that. So can you talk, Anna, a little bit about just how that process was for you? Like, what sort of things did you find yourself doing differently now than before? And just share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I did just want to call out Nicole from the comments had said that she used castor oil on her hair, and that helped with hair growth. So that is something that was recommended a lot. People mentioned putting it on your eyelashes, on your brows, on your head. For me, it didn't work. It didn't do anything for me. I tried it for a couple months and it wasn't helping, so I stopped. But I hear from a lot of other people that that was helpful. So I mean, to Dr. Jen, I don't know if there's any like randomized studies about castor oil. It may just be a recommendation, but just wanted to call that out from the comments. So in terms of product,
Anna,
yeah.
I wanted to add to what you were saying, just to note, so biotin also comes in oil form, and so being of Indian background, coconut oil is something we always put in our hair from a very young age, and so I continued doing that. I added the castor oil. I kind of felt like it was keeping my hair moisturized, but it wasn't really giving me results in terms of growth, and so I actually over the weekend ordered grapeseed oil, biotin oil, and I restocked on castor oil, and I made a mix out of all those, and that I feel has helped even in the past few days, more than just the castor oil by itself. So I would recommend maybe getting a few different powerful oils and combining them, and then going from there and seeing if that maybe helps a little bit more than just castor oil by itself. And especially if you're not too sure about taking a biotin supplement, you can maybe add that to your oil mix and see how that goes for you. Just wanted to add that in, but go ahead, Anna.
No, that's awesome. I wish that I had you around when I was trying to regrow, because I did not know that biotin came in an oil, even now. And I have heard the grapeseed oil, so that's great to know. So I really had no idea what I was doing with my hair after chemo. I mean, I will just be upfront about that. I'd go on Pinterest, I'd go Google things, but I really didn't know. I had like very straight, like I'm seeing a lot of you kind of with the shorter hair at the beginning. I had very straight for the first probably 5 months. I would say right at the 6 months post chemo mark, that's when my hair got curly. And I never had curls before. So I'm like, what on earth do I do with this? So to your point, Sonya, I really wanted like kind of creams and things that I could shape it with a little bit. So but unfortunately, like a lot of the curl creams out there that I found were more like scrunchy. I have this one that I swear by that I loved, but I realized I can't find it in stock anywhere. I got it from one of those like Birchbox subscriptions, but it's like a very touchable curl cream. And I would literally just kind of like scrunch my hair like this after the shower. And that was the only thing, because it did kind of create that like more shaped curls, and never brush it. I did find that like you don't want to just brush through it when it's curly. Getting like a wide tooth comb would be helpful. When I got out of the shower, like you said, Sonya, like hydration, very like hydrating. I loved the Curology hydration shampoo and conditioner. I use that. Shea Moisture also has like a more natural version that I hear a lot of people really like. They have a hydration line. I used to have like pre-cancer, I had very oily hair, oily skin, and then afterwards it was very dry. So I think that's also just from the hormones and all the chemicals and everything. And it's baby fine hair that's coming back. So I wanted to be really careful about just like taking care of the hair and not using as much heat on it, or if I was styling it, making sure that I, was using a heat protectant or something. So always focused on like the hydration and the care was really important. Yay, you were hoping it would come back curly. Fingers crossed. I'm telling you, mine was curly from 6 months to 12 months, and that was it. And then it went back to like my normal waves. And then how long did it take for lashes to come back? So for me, my lashes thinned more so after chemo ended. And if that happens to any of you, don't freak out like I did, because I'm like, great, made it through chemo, everything's fine. And then I would say 4 weeks after chemo ended, my brows fell out and my lashes like thinned. And I was like on Google, like, is this normal? What happened? Turns out it's very normal, and it's just kind of that residual impact of chemo. But that was my experience. Mine probably took about 8 to 12 months to really like come back fully. I mean, they were there, but they just weren't as thick. So I'm not sure about you, Sonya, how yours have been, your lashes.
Yeah, for me, it's been kind of cyclical. Although my hair has been growing consistently, my lashes are kind of like, sometimes they'll be fine, and then I'll notice, like, I'll panic because I'll see like adult size lashes falling, and it'll kind of make me feel a little bit defeated. But then I remind myself, like, this is something that, it's kind of a common experience from what I've seen from our community. And so I just, I'm doing like the different oils, and I'm doing the biotin, and I'm just trying to, I'm trying to, on days when I don't have to do mascara, I try to avoid putting things on there that might cause any kind of strain. And then just when I do put on makeup, I try and be very gentle about removing that makeup, because of course, you have these eyelashes now, and you want to dress them up and feel, kind of, like you're living your best life with that. But it's important to just be careful when you're taking off that makeup. I use coconut oil as my makeup remover, and I gently go on the eyelashes with that, and it's really quite perfect. So yeah, it's been cyclical. I don't know if I think it's definitely gotten better recently. So I would say definitely keep patient with that, and it does get better. So but yeah.
Chime in and mention something else about the lashes too. And it looks like, Blakely, you just chimed in with a question about what I was going to mention too. So 2 things about the lashes. I have talked to lots of lash experts over the years, because I've had lash extensions and all the different things. And so, Sonya, to your point, I actually learned, and again, I'm no expert, so I'm just repeating what I've learned, but that our lashes fall out in cycles, and that is our natural growth cycle. So if you see them, oh, you're sharing your screen. Oh, there we go. So if you see them falling out, like, it doesn't actually mean you're regressing. So it could just be the natural thinning, and then your fresh lashes are coming out. And so what sounds like it's different after chemo versus during is, during chemo, you may lose all of your lashes, versus the natural cycle is you'll lose like a few here, and then a few more are growing in. So just wanted to share that if you do see them falling out after, it's not necessarily an abnormal thing. And then in terms of lash serums, again, talk to your doctor, do your own research. I have tried every lash serum under the sun, so I will be glad to talk to you about ideas, what I've tried, what works. I've tried Latisse, I've tried Revitalash, I have tried, there's one more that I'm blanking on the name now. And then currently I use something called Grande Cosmetics MD Lash. So there's a ton out there. Just do your research and determine, which one you like best, or you feel free to reach out to me. I'm glad to give recommendations, but for me, they have all worked fantastic. I was on Latisse for a year after chemo, and that I think helped a lot with my, yeah, the Rodan and Fields one is great too. I've tried that one too.
Do you feel, so one thing I've heard about serums is you have to do it consistently for it to work. How was your experience? Like, is it a habit that you kind of started? At what point did you start doing the serums? And then how did you notice that progressing?
Yes. So that's a really good question. So yes, consistency matters. If you're going to do a lash serum, you have to use it every single day or every single night. My personal experience, and having talked to some other women about their experience with other lash serums, and this was my experience too, with some of the ones like Revitalash or Lash Boost, which are the Rodan and Fields one, and then there's another brand. What I have found, and I've talked to a lot of women that have this experience, is as soon as you stop, so you're stopping your routine, then I found my lashes really thinned out, and then I was kind of starting back at zero. So if I would take a little break, they would thin out a little bit. Other people don't have that experience, but for me, the Grande Cosmetics one is the only one that doesn't happen to me. Latisse, that didn't happen to me either. I could take like a week break from doing it and I wouldn't have the lash thinning, but it is something that you kind of have to commit to doing every day if you're going to do it for a while. I started the Latisse, I want to say 3 months after chemo, and then I did it for a year. So I double checked with my oncologist just to make sure it was safe. And then I got a prescription from a dermatologist. So a lot of dermatologists carry Latisse. I will say that
to know.
it's, yes, you can get a prescription for it. I will say Latisse is one of the most expensive ones. The Lash Boost and Revitalash are both a little bit cheaper. And then the Grande Cosmetics Lash MD is actually the cheapest. So for me, just having tried all of them over the years, that's the best one for me, but there's nothing wrong with trying them and seeing what works best for you. But I saw lash growth, I would say within, I think they say it's supposed to take like 6 to 8 weeks for you to see really good results. I started seeing results like after 4 weeks, and I would document every 4 weeks to see if it was actually working. So yeah, glad to answer any questions afterwards too, because I know we don't have a time left.
So we're kind of towards the end. I've popped up our contact information there. I'll send it out again in our email catch up over the weekend. But yeah, I think I wanted to just close out with one last question. And if anyone else has anything they want to ask, I'm happy to stay on a little bit later. But I wanted to discuss for a bit hair dyeing. So I want to talk about kind of your experience, Anna, because I know you experimented with that. I personally experimented with that as well. Funny story, like I said before, my hair was very long and curly before chemo. When I lost it, I went the route of doing something experimental. I bought a bob cut wig that looks a lot like what you have right now, Anna, like your natural hair. Mine was like a blonde bob. And then when my hair was growing back, I was like, let me try it out. Let me experiment a little bit here, because I wanted to do that blonde look again. And I knew that I didn't want to do it on longer hair because it's so time consuming and it's so much product having it bleached when you have long hair. So I thought, why not? I have a little bit of a mop on my head. Let me see if I can do it. So I want, if Anna, you could talk a little bit about your own experience kind of going through that, trying out hair coloring after treatment. And then Dr. Jen, if you have any thoughts about just kind of what to be mindful with hair health and just your overall health and hair dye, because there have been studies that show a little bit of an increased risk with breast cancer and hair dye. I know that study has the participants in that study did have a hereditary prevalence of breast cancer in their family, so it's not necessarily conclusive for all women across the board, and I know there's different implications for women of color as well, but just if you have any thoughts.
So I actually am glad that you brought up that study, because it's when you read it, it's really one of the most poorly written studies that I've encountered. There's a lot of confounding factors, and I think sometimes things get published to get media attention, and that caused a lot of panic, a lot of phone calls, a lot of panic. And when you really pull that paper apart, what you see are the things that you just said. All of these women had a first-degree relative, so a sister. Actually, I think it was a sister who had breast cancer. They didn't take into account what kind of products that they were using. It was kind of just this thrown together thing. But what they did see in that study that was very interesting was that there was a much higher prevalence in African American women to have breast cancer, and I believe they were of younger age. So if anything, that study really showed that racial disparity of this disease in women in different racial groups. And that's really what should have been the take home message there, and what should have been focused on. So as far as hair dye causing breast cancer, there's been absolutely no studies to show a causative relationship at all. That said, certain hair dyes have a lot of caustic and toxic things in them. And I do think that in general, we need to start paying more attention to the products that we use and what we choose to put on our skin and our hair, because our skin is our biggest organ. And it's porous and it absorbs a lot of the things that we put on it. So I'm not sure, does that answer your question? No, there's
Yeah.
not a cause for it, but yes, we should be cognizant of the products that we use.
Definitely that, and thank you for breaking that side of it down. Just the sort of the history of the participants, because that's so important. I don't think maybe the average person has a chance to think about that before they start thinking about the impact on themselves.
Right.
So I think that's a really good way to sort of ground ourselves on that issue. And I think just there's so many products out there now that allow you to just touch up your hair, your roots, and so forth, without having to necessarily go in and get your full hair dyed. Like there's different brushes and markers and things like that. I know I definitely, I started seeing a lot of gray and white hairs after chemo, so I definitely used that for the time being when I needed it. So just maybe think about, those type of products that are out there that you can lean on a little bit more if you're trying to maybe dye your hair a little bit less for your own personal reasons. Just putting that out there. But it can be a source of something fun too while your hair is coming back. And Anna, like what was your experience with that when you were kind of getting your new hair and playing around with it, and how did that kind of play into that?
Yeah, so in my experience, I was really happy to have found this particular salon where I shaved my head prior to chemo. And so I ended up having a really great relationship with the salon owner. And she had a program at the time where she was working with breast cancer patients, and she still does free haircuts and things for the year after your treatment. And so she was very experienced with women having gone through this. So she was almost my guide in terms of what we could do, what would be safe. And so it was very nice because I had someone who was an expert in hair, but had also worked with breast cancer patients guiding me through. And so her recommendation, and having talked to other women, was to wait at least 5 months, 5 or 6 months, until my hair had grown in, because it was very fine and that had a baby. My oncologist called it my baby bird hair, because it was just so soft. So we waited 5 or 6 months, and then I told her I wanted to go blonde, and she said, "Okay, well, if you want to go blonde, you are very, very dark, and I refuse to do it with bleach and do it in one session." So she said, "You have to commit." And so if you check out the hair timeline on my blog, which I know Sonya's going to share out, you'll see the many stages of blonde. So we went, I think it took me 4 or 5 months, probably a full year, to get to the color I wanted. And that was for hair health. So we did a little bit, and then she said, "Okay, come back in a month. We gave your hair time to recover. We'll go a little lighter. So, that was one piece. The other thing was that at the beginning, the coloring that we were using was, I don't know the specific details, and Laura, maybe but she had said that it was an ammonia-free L'Oreal Professional hair color. So it was, okay, so you're nodding. Okay, great. Because I say that on my blog, and then people are like, "Where do I get this at the store?" I'm like, it's not available at the store. Like, it's a professional line. But again, that was having someone that was educated and that knew what I was looking for. Now, granted, if you don't have someone that's educated, you can still go into a salon and say, "Do you have an ammonia-free color? Do you, have you worked with women with breast cancer before, or any kind of hair loss?" Just to kind of get educated. And then, so I did it in stages, and then I've been dyeing it since. I think to Dr. Jen's point and yours, Sonya, I mean, after cancer, I definitely started learning more about clean skincare and what clean beauty. I mean, God, I'm a beauty addict, and sadly, you know, learning about how many chemicals go into our makeup products is terrifying. So you do have to start making these decisions and review of what you're using and how comfortable you feel about things. I don't think it's a point of shame. I don't think like anyone should feel bad about not knowing. If you still choose to use something, I think that's totally fine. I take an 80-20 approach. I always say, like, I try to be 80% mindful and chemical free in terms of what I do, but 20% because there are still some products that I just love so much and I can't give up. So, you know, we're only human and we still got to have a little fun. And sometimes, you know, I think we can push for better products. So that's what I'm all about. But that's kind of where I'm at now. 5 years. I've been coloring it since 5 months after chemo. And I'm telling you, like, people see my hair in person and for how blonde it is for someone that is normally as dark as you, Sonya. And I think going slow is the key to health if you do want to color your hair. So that's been my experience.
And then just, I think one last point is like, so when you're doing that extreme color change, if you want to get rid of that much lighter color, at least for me, I had to at one point just cut that piece of that portion of my hair off, because as much as I dyed over it, the bleach part is just so strong that it's hard to get rid of that color. At least for me, it was when you're this dark and you know, it's bleached. So just keep that in mind. Eventually, you'll have to give it a little trim and get rid of that portion. But I love what you said about the 80-20 approach, and I think that's a really great note to close on, because, you know, I think when we're going forward from diagnosis and treatment, a lot of us kind of have to recalibrate how we're doing things, and we want to go forward in a way that is like it's honors what we've been through by making good choices, but we also still want to live in a way that makes us happy. And so just like you wouldn't totally cut yourself off maybe from like ever having a cookie again, in the same way, you know, you want to also just think about, hey, like, what are the things that I really don't want to give up, and then what are the things that I can kind of, you know, explore new options with. So I think that's a great mindset to have. So thank you for mentioning that. I want to ask Dr. Jen, do you have any last thoughts?
I think that's a really great point to close on. And I also just want to say that when we're making those decisions after this happens, that it's so much better to approach it from a place of empowerment and knowledge instead of fear-based and being scared of everything. So it's not that everything's going to, you know, make a recurrence happen or cause a problem or cause another disease, but it's that we have the knowledge and empowerment to make better choices for ourselves. And I think that's the key to that, and being able to live 80-20 comfortably and not in a way of being worried about the 20% when you do enjoy it.
I love that.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, for being here, Dr. Jen as well, and all of you for coming and sharing. And, you know, this is the first time we're hosting this series, and I think hair is such an important thing to us, not just for our health, but our mental health, our emotional health, our identity, and so forth. And so I think this is something that we'll try to do a little bit more often, and definitely get your friends involved and present next time we get together. So thank you all for coming. Wishing you all the very best. And so please, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I'm a DM away. I know Anna and Dr. Jen are as well. So if you have any questions or need any kind of support, you know where to find us. And you'll be hearing from us over the weekend. So we'll see you then. All right.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
If anybody's doing some 20% fun tomorrow, Evolve Pink's hosting a little happy hour at 7:30. It's called Wine and Wine. So it's a constructive venting session where ladies are just going to come together and have some fun. There's going to be no doctors on it. my patient and friend Liz is going to be hosting it. So it's just you ladies. And then she'll report back to me on some stuff that we can talk about and have series on in the future.
Nice. Awesome.
All right. Hope to see some of you there.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Good night.